What if the United States never existed? No Declaration of Independence, no bald eagles, no cheeseburgers the size of your head, just nothing. A big ocean where the US should be. Now at first you might think, cool, maybe the world would be more peaceful, less wars, less capitalism, less Kardashians. But here's the twist. Without the US, the world wouldn't look like some happy hippie commune. It would probably be a lot darker, a lot poorer, and a lot scarier. Stick around, because some of the biggest shocks are not what you think. For example, you probably assume the #1 impact would be World War II. Wrong. The single biggest impact of no America? The internet wouldn't exist. You wouldn't even be here watching this video, you'd probably be reading a Soviet propaganda leaflet instead, so let's unpack the chaos. Part 1. The Empire That Never Fell. Britain Rules. If America never existed, Britain never loses its colonies. That means the British Empire remains the ultimate mega-corporation of history. Imagine half the world still sipping tea at 4 p.m. because it's mandatory. Now you might think, well, maybe that's not so bad. Free healthcare and James Bond movies everywhere. But here's the catch. Britain didn't have the industrial muscle or the population scale of the US. Without America's manufacturing boom, the empire would eventually crack under its own weight. Colonies would still revolt. India, gone. Africa, rebellious. The empire becomes more like a failing startup, overextended, broke, and desperate. Still, the world order in the 19th and early 20th century would have stayed Eurocentric, with Britain, France, and maybe Germany duking it out for dominance. Part 2. The World Wars. Who actually wins? Let's rip off the Band-Aid. Without the United States, World War I ends differently. The Allies probably lose. By 1917, Britain and France were running out of money, men, and morale. It was American troops and American loans that tipped the balance. No US? Germany might have forced a peace deal that left them dominant in Europe. Fast forward to World War II. This is where it gets ugly. Without America's industrial machine cranking out tanks, planes, and nuclear bombs, the Allies were toast. Britain would have been starved into submission. The Soviet Union might still beat Germany in the East, but it would have been a near-apocalyptic bloodbath, and then Stalin would have swallowed all of Europe. No Marshall Plan, no NATO, just one giant Soviet empire stretching from Paris to Siberia. Congratulations, you're now watching this video in Russian. Part 3. Technology the world stays in the dark. Forget your iPhone, forget Google, forget even the moon landing. Without the US, the pace of technological progress slows to a crawl. America's unique combo of money, brain-drain immigration, and insane levels of competition created Silicon Valley, NASA, and the internet itself. No America means no ARPANET, which means no internet. That means no memes, no cat videos, and no TikTok influencers selling you skincare routines. Honestly, some of you might be okay with that. But seriously, without US-driven innovation, the modern global economy looks like a 1950s time capsule. Cars are clunkier, medicine is slower, and nobody's streaming Netflix because Hollywood doesn't exist either. Part 4. The Cold War, or rather, the Hot War. Here's a fun thought. Without the US, there's no Cold War. Instead, there's just a giant Soviet steamroller flattening Europe and Asia. The only other potential counterweight would be China. But remember, China only became a global power after the US helped open it to the world in the 1970s. So instead of decades of Cold War standoffs, we might have had direct bloody wars between Europe and the USSR. Nuclear weapons might have still been developed, but without America's doctrine of mutually assured destruction, there's a good chance they'd actually be used. Often. Part 5. Culture shock. No America, no global pop culture. Now let's talk culture. Without the US, pop culture as we know it doesn't exist. No Hollywood, no Marvel, no Elvis, no hip-hop, no Beyoncé. The global entertainment machine, gone. Instead, the world's pop culture would be a messy mix of British theater, French cinema, and maybe German folk music if you're unlucky. Sure, Bollywood might still rise in India, but the global cultural dominance of America, the music, movies, fashion, even slang, that disappears. And don't even get me started on fast food. Without America, no McDonald's, no KFC, no Taco Bell, the French would still be serving you snails and calling it fine dining. Part 6. The economy. Who's the superpower? Without America's massive economy, the 20th century global economy never takes off. The post-war boom? Gone. The dollar as global currency? Doesn't exist. Instead, the economic center might have shifted between Europe and, eventually, China. But without US consumerism driving production, the scale of globalization would be much smaller. Fewer jobs, less trade, less prosperity. The world economy would feel like a bicycle trying to do the work of a rocket. And the crazy part? Poverty levels worldwide would be higher. The US is often criticized for its capitalism, but that very system pulled billions of people into the global market. Without it, development would crawl. Part 7. The big twist. The world would probably be worse. Here's the part nobody expects. As much as people love to criticize America, the world is better off with it than without it. Sure, the US has started wars, made mistakes, and exported more junk food than should be legally allowed. But without it, the world is poorer, the world is less free, the world is less connected. And the irony is, the very fact that you can criticize the US openly on YouTube to a global audience is because of America's existence. Without it, you're probably stuck in a state-run media bubble somewhere, wondering why your typewriter ribbon costs half your salary. Part 8. Be glad it exists. So, what if the United States never existed? World wars end differently. The Soviet Union runs wild. Technology slows down, culture shrivels, and the economy limps instead of sprints. The US may not be perfect, but the alternative is way, way worse. So the next time you complain about overpriced lattes or American politics, remember, the world without the United States is not a utopia. It's a nightmare. Thanks for watching Unpacking America. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the single biggest thing you think the world would miss if the US never existed?